The Hollywood tough guy, Charles Bronson, left behind more than simply a legacy of classic films. He was a pioneer in the film industry. He left behind a fortune that caused his family to experience a range of feelings. But what was it about his fortune that caused him to cry rather than smile? It was the magnitude of his money, the manner in which he distributed it, or the stories that were concealed inside it. Those who remain with us will learn the truth about the final gift that Bronson gave to the people he loved. Charles Bronson, a coal miner from Pennsylvania who eventually became a hard-faced action hero and wandered into films as a villain, made his debut in the film industry, has passed away, most notably having been in the iconic Death Wish Vengeance films. He was 81 years old. Charles Bronson was more than simply a Hollywood legend. He was known for his rough and tumble charm and his powerful presence throughout his film career. Over the course of his career, which lasted more than 4 decades, Bronson was able to capture audiences with his mesmerizing performances and became synonymous with the tough guy attitude. Charles Bronson was one of the most iconic tough guys in the history of the big screen. He had a face that appeared to have been chiseled from a quarry, and his hand was never far from the trigger of an automatic weapon. After his death at the age of 81, tributes began pouring in, and he was recalled for his brooding macho presence as an actor, his weirdly self-deprecating sense of humor, and the remarkable, even tasteless, violence that he produced in his film output. At the time of his passing, Bronson was surrounded by his third wife, Kim, who was present at Cedars-Sinai Hospital in Los Angeles. Following a protracted battle with Alzheimer's disease, his health had taken a dramatic turn for the worst over the course of the preceding several weeks. The son of a coal miner in Pennsylvania, Bronson made the decision to pursue a career in acting at the end of World War II as a means of escaping his bleak upbringing during the working class. His roles as outcasts, gunslingers, and criminals were predetermined from the beginning of his career. As a result of his lack of attractiveness, an Italian publication gave him the nickname Il Brutto, which literally translates to the ugly one. It appeared as though he was destined to be relegated to supporting roles over time. The Magnificent Seven, The Great Escape, and The Dirty Dozen are the three films that complete this trilogy. In spite of this, it managed to grab the minds of spectators, particularly in Europe. In 1968, Alain Delon extended an invitation to him to participate in the production of a Dulame in France, and Sergio Leone put him in a role that would go on to define his career in Once Upon a Time in the West. There were times when it seemed as though entire hours would go by without Bronson uttering a single word. He was such a perfect example of the powerful and silent type. He was once made fun of by an episode of The Simpsons, which imagined a town named Bronson, Missouri, whose residents waited menacingly at doorways and broke their stillness only to utter things like, "I'm sorry." Michael Winner lauded him as an exceptionally talented actor, despite the fact that his performing range was restricted. Bronson once provided an evaluation that was more level-headed. "At some point in the future, I would like to have a part in which I can drink a cocktail while leaning my elbow against a mantelpiece." In contrast to the careers of other Hollywood stars, Bronson's path was not an easy one. He came back to Hollywood as a star when he was 50 years old. Theorizing about the reasons why the journey had taken him so long, he said so in an interview in 1971. "It's possible that I have an idealistic image, that I'm too macho, or that casting directors cast in their own image. It is possible that I may not appear to be anyone's ideal." The early years of his life did not provide any clues about his later fame. He was the 11th of 15 children to be born to a coal miner and his wife, both of whom were immigrants from Lithuania. His name was Charles Bunchinsky, Scooptown was a rough neighborhood where young Charles learnt the art of survival. In this neighborhood, you had nothing to lose because you had already lost everything you had. The youngsters of the Bunchinsky family lived in a cramped cabin, and they wore clothes that had been passed down from their older siblings. It was embarrassing for Charles, who was just 6 years old at the time, to go to school wearing his sister's outfit. When Charles was 10 years old, his father passed away, and when he was 16 years old, he followed his brothers into the mines. He received $1 for each ton of coal that he worked, and he volunteered for dangerous duties because the compensation was higher. His actions, similar to those of other toughs in Scooptown, resulted in him being arrested for assault and robbery and landing in jail. It is possible that he would have spent the remainder of his life working in the mines, with the exception of World War II. According to reports, he was a tail gunner on a B-29 while serving with the United States Army Air Corps in the Pacific region after being drafted in 1943. After gaining exposure to the wider world, he made a solemn promise to never go back to the filthy conditions of Scooptown. He asserted that he was not drawn to acting because he had a yearning to exercise his artistic abilities. The amount of money that movie stars could make left an impression on him. In addition to painting scenery and playing a few supporting roles, he became a member of the Philadelphia Play and Players Theater Ensemble. Bronson was able to improve his diction while attending the Pasadena Playhouse School. He was able to provide for himself by selling Christmas cards and gifts on the corners of random streets. He was cast in the role of a gob in the 1951 service comedy You're in the Navy Now, which starred Gary Cooper. Studio scouts saw him at the Playhouse and decided to cast him in the role. In 1958, Bronson made his debut as a leading actor in the exploitation picture Machine Gun Kelly, which was shot over the course of 8 days. The Magnificent Seven, The Great Escape, The Battle of the Bulge, The Sandpiper, and The Dirty Dozen were among the films in which he had outstanding performances, which contributed to his rise to prominence. However, he was unable to achieve true popularity due to the fact that his rough-hewn features and harsh demeanor did not conform to the Hollywood tradition of leading males. His picture Death Wish, which was released in 1974, was his most controversial work. His life is turned upside down when young thugs murder his wife and rape his daughter. Bronson is a wealthy liberal architect, and his life is turned upside down. His executions were met with cheers from audiences who were tired of viewing criminals, and he makes a solemn commitment to rid the city of such pests. Despite the fact that the vigilantism of the character was met with great condemnation, Death Wish went on to become one of the most successful films of the year. As a result of Bernard Guts shooting young people in a New York subway that he believed were threatening him, the controversy became even more intense. During the year 1987, Bronson defended the 3 additional Death Wish flicks that he had produced. In my opinion, they offer a sense of fulfillment to individuals who have been victimized by criminal activity and have been looking for authorities to protect them in vain. However, I don't believe that people make an effort to replicate something like that. As he appeared on the screen, Bronson could be just as reserved in interviews as he was in public. Despite his distance from the Hollywood scene, he continued to. Despite the fact that I believe I have a large number of friends, I actually do not have any. Throughout his life, Bronson's family life was a real reflection of his one-of-a-kind and daring personality. It was full with events that were as unorthodox and fascinating as the guy himself. When Charles Bronson first fell in love with Harriet Tendler, he was still in the early stages of his profession. The 2 individuals were both participants in the amateur theater organization known as Plays and Players. In the beginning, when Bronson joined the group, he had an interest in painting scenery and decorating the room. The Jewish woman Harriet was the daughter of a prosperous dairy farmer, and Bronson was a wealthy businessman. Birth Charlie Bukinski was a former coal miner who also adhered to the Catholic faith. On the other hand, as time went on, he found himself pulled to acting and grew closer to Tendler. Bronson was only carrying 4 cents in his pocket when they went out on their first date. 2 years later, with Tendler's father's reluctance leading up to the wedding, the couple tied the knot. The pair tied the knot in 1949, and shortly thereafter, they relocated to California in order to pursue their aspirations as a married couple. Due to the fact that Tendler owned stuff in 4.5 of the 5 suitcases that Bronson and his family relocated with, Bronson had a difficult time carrying enough belongings with them. Bronson put in a lot of effort to enhance his art when he was in California. Before getting a divorce in 1965, he and Tendler had been married for a total of 15 years. As a result of their divorce, they were blessed with 2 children, Suzanne and Tony. When his career was at its pinnacle, Bronson got married for the second time and walked down the aisle. In the beginning, he began an affair with Jill Ireland, who was already married to David McCallum at the time. Now, she was going to be his wife. After some time in 1968, Brown and Ireland finally tied the wedding. Following the dissolution of his marriage to Ireland, David McCallum, a star of NCIS, he passed through some challenging moments. On the other hand, he did not reveal the impact that the divorce had on him until approximately half a century later, in the year 2016. McCallum demonstrated that he was in a lot better position, and he did not even have any resentment toward Bronson due to the fact that his ex-wife had left him for another man. He was introduced to Ireland as a result of the fact that the famous actor and Bronson met on the show Great Escape. On the set of the film, it was rumored that Bronson had allegedly threatened to take McCallum's wife away from him. This, however, remained a matter of conjecture for many years. In response to a question regarding this, McCallum stated unequivocally that nothing to the contrary had taken place. With regard to Bronson, he commented, "McCallum did confess that it was a challenging time, despite the fact that he was cordial about his ex-wife's relationship with Bronson. Ireland and he were the parents of 3 children," he revealed to the audience. Jason, the eldest of the 3 children that the couple adopted, was the oldest. As a result of the dissolution of their marriage, Ireland was awarded custody of the children, which contributed to the difficulties that McCallum experienced. In the same way that McCallum and Bronson were actors, Jill Ireland was an actress who aspired to achieve great success in the field. However, love and romance were never out of the question. When Bronson and Ireland tied the knot, they created a mixed family by bringing together their children. In his first marriage, he had 2 children, and in her first marriage, she had 3 children herself. Zuleika was the name of the girl that they had together as a couple. In addition, they adopted another daughter, Katrina Holden, who eventually became their adoptive daughter, was the daughter of the late casting director Hilary Holden, who had passed away due to an unexpected heart attack. However, despite the fact that Bronson appeared to have a family and was unable to afford to adopt Katrina, he did so. Ireland frequently performed the role of Bronson's leading lady, and she appeared alongside him in 15 films. They frequently accompanied all of the children to film locations, and they would base their house wherever the filming took place. This was done in order to maintain the closeness of the family unit. A colonial home in Vermont was another place that they frequently visited. It was there that Ireland reared horses and taught their daughter Zuleika how to compete in horse shows. Their winter vacations were also spent in Snowmass, Colorado, in the United States. Unfortunately, Jill Ireland lost her battle with breast cancer in May of 1990 at their home in Malibu. She had been battling the disease for a very long time. 1986 was the year when she was initially diagnosed with the condition. Nevertheless, the rage recurred in 1989. Carrie passed away when she was 54 years old. Bronson tied the knot for the third time with Kim Weeks, a former actress who worked for Dove Audio and was involved in the creation of Jill Ireland's audiobooks. The wedding took place in December of 1998. Until the time of his passing, Bronson and Weeks were married for a period of 5 years. Bronson's life was like a compelling movie. It was full of highs and lows, love and grief, and achievements that were earned with a lot of hard work. Over the course of his voyage, he encountered a great number of obstacles. What he left behind for his family, however, is something that you are left thinking about. The American actor Charles Bronson had a career that spanned more than 4 decades and was one of the actors who earned the most money throughout his time because of his work. Performing was the primary means by which Charles Bronson amassed his wealth. He appeared in a great number of historical films. This did not fail to receive praise from critics. He has also made a significant amount of money by performing in television shows. During the pinnacle of his professional career, he was regarded as the highest-paid individual in the entire globe. The Stone Killer, Chino, and Death Wish were among the flicks that brought him a total of $1 million in earnings. It was in the 1976 film St. Ives that the macho actor received his final salary of $1 million. Bronson's value increased even further in 1983, when he made $2 million from the film 10 to Midnight. This was the year when his value doubled. Not only did Bronson work in the film industry, but he also made appearances in a number of television shows. He was a recurring character on the police drama Miami Vice, in addition to having a starring role in the Western series The Magnificent Seven television series. When Bronson was nominated for an Emmy Award in 1985, it was because of his work in television. Through his acting career, Bronson is reported to have earned a total of $50 million. In addition to his work as an actor, Bronson was also the owner of a number of other properties. It was in Malibu, California, where he owned a property, as well as a ranch in the state of Colorado. Additionally, Bronson was the owner of a number of automobiles and motorcycles. At the time of Bronson's passing, it was believed that the combined value of his personal assets was $20 million. Individuals who are devoted to a celebrity and enthusiastic about them frequently present them with unusual and lavish presents. On the other hand, Charles Bronson, a Hollywood celebrity, received one of the most extravagant fan presents in the history of the world. During the year 1996, a woman from Louisville made the decision to leave her whole fortune of $300,000 to Bronson, who was her favorite actor, in the form of a handwritten will. Apparently, Audrey Nowhere passed away in 1997 at the age of 55, leaving behind an inheritance that was valued at $300,000. This information comes from the New York Post. However, in a turn of events that was unexpected, it was found out that she had left Charles Bronson the entirety of her money in a note that she had written by hand. Her statement that under no circumstances is my mother, Helen, to inherit anything from me, demonstrates that she did not want any of her family members to profit from the money that she had accumulated. A bloody components of the body, assets of the financial system, etc. Nowhere had never had the opportunity to become acquainted with Bronson. However, she was a devoted fan of his films and maintained a collection of newspaper clippings that made reference to him. She frequently rented his Death Wish videos from the Louisville Free Public Library because she found them to be very enjoyable during her viewing sessions. After Nowhere's passing, Bronson was the recipient of a piece of the estate that she had left behind. Later on, however, when her other family members, who were represented by her sister Nancy Cooper, became aware of the magnitude of the bequest, They filed a counterclaim against the will. At the time that Nowhere penned the will that left Bronson the inheritance of her estate, it was hypothesized that she was not completely stable psychologically. In its place, the family provided an older document that had been signed and witnessed by Nowhere in 1977. They contended that this document should take precedence over the personally written will. When Nowhere passed away, she had stipulated in this earlier bequest that her estate would be distributed among her relatives in the event of her passing. Cooper said that Nowhere was incapable of making the choice to hand over all of her belongings to Bronson, and he argued that this was so, providing evidence that she was not in a state of sound mind when she penned the will. The implication that she was making was that Audrey was so fascinated with Bronson that she was going insane. She was so obsessed with his movies and his public life that she would spend hours in the public library looking for material about him so that she could learn more about him. The initial suggestion that Bronson made was that he was going to give the entire sum of money to the library. It is possible that this would have been one of the most significant donations in the history of the organization. Nevertheless, Bronson and Cooper eventually reached a settlement outside of court for a figure that was not disclosed. However, the library was left with nothing in the end. It was in the year 2003 when Charles Bronson passed away at the age of 81. At that time, his net worth was $65 million. The philanthropist Charles Bronson was extremely giving, and over his career, he gave away millions of dollars to various charitable organizations. He contributed financial support to a wide range of causes, such as those pertaining to the treatment of cancer, the welfare of children, and animal welfare organizations. A total of almost $10 million was donated to charity causes by Bronson. The American Cancer Society, Children's Hospital Los Angeles, Humane Society, and Society of the United States of America were among the organizations that benefited from his financial contributions.